On January 16th, Phil Spector died. Most people know Phil Spector as the billionaire music producer who worked with such acts as the Beatles and the Righteous Brothers, and Leonard Cohen, who killed Lana Turner and was sentenced to a lengthy prison stay. I know Phil Spector as that J-Cat down the tier who owes me $20. So to the executor of Phil Spector's estate, 4 boxes of oatmeal, a package of Bic razors, 4 Sara Lee cakes. That's what he owed me. Shoot that. I had a lot of interactions with Phil Spector while he was locked up. I actually processed the paperwork whenever I was a lieutenant's clerk that brought him onto the yard at SAD-F where he was doing time. SAD-F was the Substance Abuse Treatment Facility in Corcoran, California. It was a prison yard set aside for high-profile inmates, inmates that other people would want to hurt if they had access to them, rats, sex offenders, transgender inmates, things like that. And 9/10 of the inmates were, of course, not any of these things, but rather just inmates who were able to program with somebody like Phil Spector and not punch him in the nose just to get on the news. One day, whenever I was working as the canteen clerk, Phil Spector rolled up and wanted to spend his money. You were allowed to spend $180 at the canteen every month. My job was to take the list of food items that you wanted to buy, make sure that the dollar value of those items added up to what it was supposed to, put them all into a box, and then slide the box out a little window. However, Phil Spector wanted to spend $180 and he only had $12 on his books. For whatever reason, his money had not been sent to him by his lawyers or his wife. I had the dubious honor of getting up on the window and going, Phil, hey, Phil, you don't have any money, man. You can't get all the stuff you think you're going to get. He argued with me a little bit. He went, yeah, I have money, it's there. He'd had some kind of damage done to his larynx, so he had a terrible rasp. I told him, no, Phil, look, I checked. You don't have any money. If he'd been younger, big, scary, the temper tantrum he threw would have been intimidating. He was a hoarse 70-year-old man who had difficulty regulating his emotions. I had a very hard time not laughing at the temper tantrum he threw. He stomped his foot on the ground. Do you know who I am? I'm Phil Spector, I'm famous and I'm rich and I want my food! I actually felt bad for him. It was obvious he was not used to being told no. And I did interact with him on a daily basis, so I thought that it was a reasonable choice to offer to lend him a couple of bucks. I told him, hey Phil, I tell you what, I'll get you some goodies, I'll slide them out the window, I'll pay for them with my money, and then you can pay me back whenever you get your money situation worked out. Because I know you have money, I know who you are, but it's not at the canteen. I can't get your money for you. You need to talk to your lawyers or your wife. He was amenable, and so I shot out some stuff for him, $20 worth of stuff. And again, to the executor, it was 4 boxes of oatmeal, a package of Bic razors, 4 boxes of Sara Lee cakes. Next 2 months in a row, I asked him, hey Phil, you're going to pay me back that stuff, right? He went, oh yeah, I'm going to pay you. I forgot. I'm sorry. Anybody else, I probably would have applied a little bit of pressure. Again, I was the guy that worked in the canteen. I was very capable of saying, hey, you owe me money and we need to address that before you can spend money and buy the stuff you want. However, Phil had lawyers. He had, theoretically, power. I never pushed the issue and I never got paid. However, a couple of weeks later, there was a funny conversation with Phil. I was waiting in line with him so that we could eat dinner together, and he was seething. He was obviously upset. And I asked him, hey Phil, what's going on, man? You look angry. It's my wife. Angry at my wife. I assumed he was angry because she wasn't sending him his money. That's why I'd be pissed. But she had spent what he guessed to be between $250 million to not watch the Super Bowl that year. She had bought a first-class ticket for her and her friend to go to the Super Bowl, round trip of course, and a suite at the Four Seasons. But the Four Seasons wasn't renting suites by the day. You had to rent a suite for a week if you wanted to get a suite, because the Super Bowl had all the hotels very booked. She'd gotten a skybox at the game, and they went, and about a half hour into the game, her and her friend had decided that it was boring and that they wanted to go do something else, and they went to a club or something like that. That's like a lot of money. And I understand him being upset. How wasteful, how frivolous. But again, I'd be pissed about my $180. Hell with $500,000. He's a billionaire. How come he can't spend money at the canteen? Heck, if anything, I wish she'd sent it to him so he could pay me back. I intend to talk about Phil Spector and my experiences with him on a semi-daily basis for the next week or so, because I did have a lot of interactions with him, and he was an interesting character. And he did just die in prison, again, for the murder of Lana Turner. But, you know, the thing with him not having money, it gets me thinking about how we value ourselves, how we determine what we're worth. Phil Spector, very much so. His identity was built around his bank account, how much money he had. It's what he thought was important about him, and that's understandable. I imagine that most of the people that he interacted with, that was the most important thing about him to them. But your money can be taken from you. And if something can be taken from you, it's not really yours to start with. You know what makes you you? Is your experiences, your integrity, your discipline. The way you feel about yourself whenever you look at yourself in the mirror. Those things can't be taken. If you value yourself with those things, you don't ever have to throw a temper tantrum on the yard yelling that, somebody, don't you know who I am? So, don't go to prison. And if you do, don't lend Phil Spector $20. The dude will not pay you back.